Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. I am Amy, along here with my sister Molly. We help high-achieving women increase their income, but most importantly, their impact. We are neighbors, sisters, and business partners. We have built 8-figure businesses together, traveled the world together, raised our children together, mentored thousands of men and women together, and it's all because we have a penthouse mindset. We aim for the top, and we show others how to empower themselves to peel back the layers and truly step into their greatness and calling. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. My name is Amy Mosser, along with my sister Molly Croker, and we are so excited to have an incredibly fabulous woman with us this morning, Melissa Mroczek, and it is, did I say your last name right?
Yeah, you did. Good job. Yay.
That Polish name. I looked at the spelling of it and I'm like, I completely butchered it again.
Nope, that was perfect. Good job.
Of course. Well, we are so glad that you're here with us. And one of the things that Molly and I absolutely love about what we do is we get to meet the best women. We just stumble upon because we believe that when both of us, when we get up in the morning, we say, all right, God, who can we bless today? And you were one of those women that came into our circle, into our group, and you have really you've changed us because of your story. And we've loved to see, we've kind of grown together as we've gone through a few months together in our coaching. And so, like Molly said before we got on, pivoting. That's one of the things that we really are so passionate about is it's okay to pivot when you're 22, when you're 52, when you're 72. It's okay to pivot. And you have pivoted so beautifully. And I would love to just kind of have you share your story starting from the beginning and then to where you are now, and to really encourage women to be okay stepping out in faith and pivoting and walking in what they know they were called to do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so funny because like every time I hear the word pivot, I think of that Friends episode with Ross and they're trying to move the couch and he's like, pivot, pivot. And like every time without fail, anytime we hear that word, and it just like makes me giggle inside. I feel like I think all I know is how to pivot, honestly, and not even on purpose. It's just sort of that's just the way my life has worked out. We were talking a few days ago just about side hustles, and I started thinking back. I'm like, I think I've always kind of just tried stuff and like throw spaghetti at the wall, see how it goes, and then adjust from there. That's just sort of my natural approach, I think. Whether it's from like home decorating, my first house, I remember painting a bathroom orange just because I like the color. I'm like, yeah, this would be fun. And it's just a bathroom. So like if I hate it, it's just a bathroom, I can paint over it. But I just sort of always did that. And if I put it up and I hated it, then I would paint a new color, which is kind of like a little mini pivot. So I think that's just sort of my style a little bit because I don't know. I think something can sound good in your mind, but you have to really try it. And what you envision in your head of how it's going to be, like if you've created this whole story around it, and then the experience doesn't match that, you have to be okay going, oh, maybe my story was off, or maybe I'm going to follow this other thing instead. Or I thought I was going to love this part of this job, but it's actually this part over here that I love, and I'm going to follow that instead. So I think partly maybe it's just a little bit of curiosity, like natural curiosity, just to try stuff and follow it, kind of see where it goes. So I think that's something that people, especially women, maybe don't always have the confidence to follow their curiosity. Or like just talking about that bathroom painting example. I remember my mom and her friends would be like, oh, you're so brave. I'm like, brave, it's just paint, you know? But
Right.
for
No
them,
one's
like
going to
that felt,
die.
yeah, like that felt like something like, oh, that's so scary. Like, what if I hate it? I'm like, well, you paint over it if you hate it, you know? So I think sometimes just giving yourself that confidence to follow your curiosity and see where it leads. And if you don't like it, adjust or pivot from there. So maybe that's just the thing I've always kind of done without meaning to. I don't know.
I wrote that down because I love that. I'm like, that is like powerful wisdom right there. Have the confidence to follow your curiosity. But backing up, not everybody has confidence. And I think that's what
Yeah.
brought you into our life was a post on LinkedIn that led to a friendship that led to you joining the Napoleon Hill Institute, the mentorship program. And I look at one thing that we focus on there in that program is the inner work. We have a self-confidence camp that you've been a part of that's 5:30 in the morning, and that is a great place to start, but you're not going to get anything with the inner work until you dive into coaching, whether it's with us at Sisters Next Door or through Napoleon Hill. I
Yeah.
love that you've had that confidence though from the beginning, but you really did the inner work. So you have great stories, and I love the story. If you'd be willing to go back to, you
Yeah, sure.
were on Etsy before Etsy was even a thing. Like before, well, before I knew about Etsy, which isn't probably saying a lot,
Which I was gonna.
but like
Yeah.
sewing pillows, pregnant, like this was a long time ago. Like this is such a great
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, I did. Well, there's a couple of those apps, and I think I don't again probably just because I'm curious and I'm interested in things, then I've always had sort of that creative streak as well. Like even my very first job out of college, I was doing marketing work, but on the side, I was taking graphic design classes and learning how to do that just because it interested me. And I would do like design work. I designed my own wedding suite, like all the invitations, all the paper goods and stuff. I worked at a big company here in town at the time, and we had this massive industrial printer right on site that we could use and we could just print whatever we wanted at cost. I'm like, oh, great, I'll just design my own and print them here and I can order the custom paper from the like, so I just kind of always had that creative streak. But yeah, so I was on Etsy, gosh, I think I first joined, it was probably 15 or maybe almost 20 years ago, somewhere when it very first started. I think we still lived in Colorado at the time, or maybe we had just moved back to Omaha. But I heard about it or read about it somewhere, and it just really aligned with that creative streak in me. I was like, I mentioned the painting story. I love doing interior design. And our first house, the day that we closed down it, we were ripping wallpaper off and repainting. And my husband likes doing all the handiwork, and I like doing the creative work. So it was a good partnership in that. But I had gotten into like refinishing furniture, like finding old things, fixing them up just because I liked it in our house, just a little bit of an eclectic style. And then I got to the point where my husband was like, no more chairs, no more pillows. So I'm like, okay, what do I do with all these cool things that I find? Like, I stumble across. So then I was like, oh, I'll set up this little shop on Etsy. And I was selling like fabric goods and recovering chairs, repainting furniture, refinishing it. I actually then moved into, I wanted a custom piece for one of the kids' rooms. So I found a carpenter here in Omaha, had him build me what I wanted. I covered the whole thing in like grass cloth and did these, the nail trim, like whatever. I just was sort of fearless. And it's funny because, we talked about self-confidence, and I have areas in my life where I feel like I had that confidence and that fearlessness, and then areas where I didn't. So when I came in and after we connected on LinkedIn, and it was because I knew there was a couple areas where I didn't have the confidence. Like I was lacking it at a subconscious level. And I'm like, I have to figure out this block because that is like holding me back from what I know is already available to me, but I can't quite get there and I got to figure that out. So that was sort of an area of my life. Other areas I didn't have the block. It was like not a problem. I just did it, whatever. So yeah, so I had this Etsy shop. We had two kids at the time. I was working full time, a job that I traveled quite a bit, but I just really loved doing it. And it sort of kept picking up and picking up. I did a lot of like trade fabrics because I worked in the architecture engineering field. So I had taken a lot of interior design classes. I had a trade license. I could order these, like designer only finishes and wallpapers and fabrics and stuff. And then I got pregnant with our third. So I'm still like, again, pregnant. I'm doing all this. I'm trying to work a job. I have two little kids. And I did it for a few months after she was born. And I was probably going on 4 hours of sleep between having three little kids, working, trying to get all the orders done and get things out. And it was like a critical moment where I was, okay, am I going to keep doing this? And like, this is a business that I'm going to build. Like, I'm going to get some space and hire some seamstresses, some sewers, and like make this a thing, or it's not. Cause I really loved the job that I did. I loved the work that I did. It was really interesting to me. So it wasn't like, I hate this and I got to find a way out. It was just something else I loved at the same time. And it got to a point where I had to decide. I was like, I don't think I want to do that. Like, that's just not, I don't feel drawn to it. Like, I enjoy it, but like I don't love it to the level of I know the attention and the energy that takes, and I don't think I want to do it. I want to be able to focus on my family. I don't want to be starting a business over here on the side and trying to raise three little kids. So at that point, I kind of got out of it and backed my way out and found other people, to have some, because I had customers that I had done multiple pieces for headboards and furniture and fabric. So it was like, okay, I'm going to pass you off to this other person because, I'm going to focus on my kids, my husband, my family, and my job. So at that point, it was again kind of a pivot moment, but I had to take a step back and think about like, what do I really want? Because what I'm doing isn't sustainable, and it's somebody's going to suffer, probably me, but probably also my family. I got to really think about like, how do I envision the next step? And I just didn't see it for myself. So I think that's kind of part of it too, of it helps you to be a little less scared to take that next step. If you can pause and look at it and say, can I see the next steps? Can I see the path forward for this? And if you can, it's okay to say, okay, that's not for me right now. Or I think I want something different than that. I think that's a really scary moment, but it's okay to do that for sure.
I think that the powerful thing in that story is it's not giving up. I think, and I also have been there where it's not like, oh, I'm quitting this, but yeah, you can have both and I always tell people that you can have both and it doesn't have to be either or. But there also comes a time when you pivot where you're like, I'm saying no to this because I'm saying yes to even more here. It's not like, oh,
Correct.
you're a failure, you're quitting. And
Yeah.
honestly, you having the self-confidence in that area of your life, like you said, you didn't have it in every aspect, but especially in that area, you did. And there wasn't
Mhm.
shame and guilt involved with, I'm giving this up and oh my gosh, who am I to pass these people off? You did it so well. And that's what I love about your story too.
Yeah, there was a moment too, like in that time frame. So I had my youngest daughter was like in a stroller still, so baby, not walking yet. My mom was with me. We were at this shop down in Papillion. I was picking up. She always had really cool, interesting finds, and it actually is the lady who runs Junk Stock now. If you've ever heard of that, if anybody's
Oh,
heard that, but this was she had a shop in Papillion before they had the farm. So I've known her that long, but she had just some really cool stuff that they had scavenged somewhere, and I was, in there talking to her and is talking just kind of, what do you do? What are you doing with the furniture? What do kind of telling her story. And as I'm listing out all the things that I do, because I also at the time was like running a ton, I was doing like, I think I wasn't doing full marathon training at that point, but I was doing half marathons still. So I was running a lot. I was doing yoga a lot. I was doing all these things. And I just kind of kept going, oh, and I also do this. Oh, and I also do this. And then she just looked at me and was like, how do you do all that? I'm like, well, it doesn't sound crazy until you list it all out loud all at once. I'm like, in my head, it's just one more thing I love, one more thing I love. I'm like, but yeah, now it sounds really crazy. Like, what am I doing? It's like, that's what I kind of was the first inkling of like, yeah, maybe I'm trying to cram in too much at the same time. Like, yeah, it does sound crazy when I say it out loud, but yeah.
Oh my gosh. It seems like you have, as I listen to you, you have a really good intuition or faith or God or whatever. Like you listen, you get that sort of feeling or knowing, right? And pivot. Is
Hmm.
that what is it? Because I think some people I see oftentimes they can't make decisions or they don't even know. Like what brings you joy? Well, I don't know. And you think, how?
Hmm.
So that knowingness. Is that something you feel like you really do? I mean, we're all works in progress, but you seem to be able to make decisions quickly and follow that. Is it a feeling when you're launch something or when you're like, actually, this doesn't feel good. I'm going to quit my W-2 job and go focus on this. Is there something within you? Is there something outside of you? How do you make those decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's evolved over time, and that is something I've worked on. One, yes, I do have a really strong faith. So I think at the end of the day, we are where we're supposed to be, whether it's, feels like a positive experience or a negative experience, whatever story we tell about it, like you're going to get, my belief is that you're going to get something out of it. I learned a new term for that recently, which I had never heard, but it's called, I think it's emotional alchemy. So the ability to take something that's a negative experience or something that feels negative or traumatic or challenging and turn it into something positive. So it's like kind of the same thing as like the transmutation that we talk about at Napoleon Hill. So how do you take this energy and make it into something else? So it's sort of that same thing. Part of that I think comes from my religious faith. I'm a Christian, I believe in God and Jesus and the presence and that we're all here for a reason. And that's a really strong part of getting quiet and listening. And so doing that prayer and then being quiet and listening, like what comes from it. But it's also something I've worked on, like different ways to be able to tell. Making a decision isn't always easy for me and hasn't always been easy. I feel like I would hem and haw, and I worried a lot about what the right decision was versus just taking a decision and then adjusting. I worried a lot, especially when I was younger. What's the right thing for me? But at the end of the day, it always came back to sort of a feeling in my body of like, does this feel tense and tight and kind of icky and scary in that way? Or does it feel like I feel comfortable? And for me, it's kind of in the core of my body is where I can feel it, sort of in my hips into my core, where I can feel like the tightness if something doesn't feel just right versus like, no, I feel relaxed and loose and open. Even though it might be kind of scary, exciting, I feel looser in like the core of my body because that's where I've kind of figured out that's where I feel like a decision point. But I mean, I didn't learn that on my own. That came from, again, I did yoga and body work and, talking to people that, asking that question, how do you make a decision? What is a good thing? I mean, I used to do stuff with listing it on a piece of paper, the pros and cons, list out all the pros and all the cons of taking each choice. Or there's another method with using like quadrants that, one of the body workers gave me. So I think it's something I've practiced because I want to be able to just make a decision and worry less about it being right or wrong and just trying something and then adjusting from there. I think that probably also has come from having kids where you're trying to advise them and seeing them get wrapped up on making the right or the wrong choice. And it's like, there isn't a right or wrong. Like you do something and then you see how it goes and then you take another step and you take another step and it reveals its way. So practice and maturity and more practice is probably why. I think the best advice is, like I said, just getting quiet, and kind of going inside and asking that question and then just seeing what comes up, whether it's a feeling, whether some people hear auditory, some people get sensation, sometimes I'll see like words in mind. I've been a meditator for a long time. So that's another way where just to try and get a pause and then see how you feel afterwards when you think about the decision. What's the first reaction that comes up? Those are some of the things that I do to be able to decide and not, I guess, get off the pot instead of sitting all day, as that old saying goes.
You gave people some really great things for people that are just a step ahead in the knowingness. But I think for a lot of people, Melissa, and maybe you can speak to this as well, is a lot of people can't make decisions. And this was me because of what other people think. So
Yeah.
it's so external before you even get to the internal. I love that you pointed out exactly like the internal, the feeling within. But for a lot of us, we're not even there. We're still out
Yeah.
on what will people think of me. And that to me was a huge point of growth and even growing again on this last trip. So, did that ever factor into anything like think back to years ago before you even
Yeah.
had this? We talked about the body worker that you had that worked on you for a year and a half for your hip when most people would have just gone and had surgery. You knew like, no, this is not surgical. I need to do, but you're like so far ahead. What about that early person that is just discovering this personal growth and development side of them? Can you speak
Yeah.
to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I still have, I mean, literally probably yesterday I had a moment of what will people think if I do this versus that, for real. I mean, that's real. I think no matter how much you learn or how much you grow or, how much work you do, like that still comes up. Especially, I think it's common in women because we're sort of socialized that way, right? To worry what everyone else thinks, to fit in with a group. It's a big part of those adolescent and teen years of fitting in with everyone and, whatever. You're in a sorority life, like it's, you're part of the tribe, you don't deviate from the tribe. So I think that's still common. I think it helps. Partly it is a time of maturing and getting older and getting more comfortable with yourself. And at the end of the day, I just remind myself, like when I'm out here worrying about what I'm doing and what everyone's thinking about me, am I looking at other people and judging the choices they're making? No, I'm not, because I'm so worried about me and what everyone's thinking about me. I don't pay any attention to them. So I just remind myself that they are doing the same thing. They're worried about their lives and what everyone else is judging. They are not paying any attention to what I'm doing. And in the instance that they do have a judgment about them, that the Mel Robbins book and all of her content lately has been great. It's like, okay, you can't control that. Like they're going to think what they're going to think. They're going to, they're going to like or dislike. And at the end of the day, the only person that you have to live your life for is yourself. Right. Like you live it in partnership with your family and those things. But even at the end of the day, like you're not living your life for your family. You're not. It's only your experience. Like your soul is here in this experience, in this life to do whatever. And to just remind myself of that. And it is hard. I still go through moments of, well, what will someone say about this? And what will someone say about that? But just to remind yourself the times where someone made a choice that you didn't agree with. And did you keep going on with your life or did you stop and get completely wrapped up in what they were doing? No, I mean, you might be like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that shirt. Okay. And then you move on. So I think, and I see the same thing with my daughter. I have a college age daughter and she's very much still in that, fear of judgment and fear of ridicule and what will people think. And, I'm trying to teach her the same lessons, maybe a little bit earlier than I got them so that she can go on and feel the freedom and joy in her life a little sooner. But yeah, I think it's hard. Yeah. I still struggle with it, honestly. I really do. I just try and I think for me, like if I can get calm and, go inside and meditate, then you come from a place of just being a lot more calm and aligned with yourself. And so then you just don't worry about that stuff because you're like, I'm in a place of calm and light and it doesn't even occur to you to think about it. So for me, that's just, especially like doing the self-discipline camp and starting the day with that moment of quiet, starting the day with opening your heart and then having quiet. I mean, that's a great practice. It's just a habit that then sets the tone for the rest of your day. So even if you're busy and hectic all day, you've started with that. So you can kind of remember to go back to that place. So that's probably key for me. Does that
Melissa,
help?
I know you've been an entrepreneur, you've been an employee, you have done a lot of really amazing things. What is the one of the greatest lessons you've learned? Is there something that you look back on and it maybe was probably a challenge, but what you look back and you're like, I'm so glad that I learned that. So glad I went through that. It happened exactly
Oh
as
gosh.
it was to.
Yeah. I feel like, and there's been a lot of ups and downs. Some of my kind of professional history is I worked in corporate marketing for a long time. I worked in the architecture engineering industry for a long time. I worked my way through all different specialties within that and kind of different companies. I think the biggest thing that I learned was just, if you're doing your best work, if you're working hard at something, you're kind of doing what your best in that moment is, like opportunities present themselves. And when they do, say yes. So even if you're not sure, even if it's a little bit scary, like just say yes and give it a try. So it kind of goes still back to that curious mindset. But even if you don't know and you feel like I'm not sure that I can do this, or I don't know about that task, or they were asking me to take on this role and I don't know, just say yes and try it. Because I mean, chances are like you're just as good as anybody else who would do that work, right? I think trying to get through that imposter syndrome that can come up a lot in the working world and just give it a try, because realizing like, we're all just the same idiots out here fumbling around, like trying to figure stuff out. There might be people that act like they know more or act like, they're better, but we're all just kind of the same like meat suits out here trying to do whatever. So that was a good lesson. I think when I was young, I had a couple of really good mentors too that just, when, one of my first mentors in my first job at a big architecture engineering company, he just was really good and practical about like teaching me things or telling me things or just kind of bringing me in to let me just listen along to meetings that were many levels above my pay grade. I mean, I was like an entry level sales and marketing person, and he was like on the C-suite floor, but I just got to learn and listen and just see how decision making happened and see how people interacted and what was important to people in that role, because then that colors how you present things to them or bringing ideas forward, just kind of seeing the way people operate in those teams, especially as a new employee. That was really really valuable. So yeah, I think finding a mentor is another good aha lesson. I'm glad I had people to kind of coach and teach me all the way through, because I think I had them at every job that I worked at, somebody that really could kind of help me know the ropes.
And so at the opposite of that, what are you most proud of? What is the thing you're most proud of as you're looking at your last, are you 50 yet? 40?
Oh, no, not quite.
Okay,
48.
last
Yeah, close.
48 years. If
Yeah.
you were to look back, what is the thing that you're the most proud of that you just brings a big smile to your face?
Hmm. I would say probably the building that I've done. One, like I have a company now, so building that company, kind of jumping in and building that and figuring it out, building the teams that I built. So kind of being like the mom, the mentor to other people, the same way that I had good mentoring from above. My kids, same kind of thing, like helping to build them as humans and, get them ready to send off out into the world. I have one that's in college about to graduate, one that just graduated high school, and then another teenager. So seeing them older and like really becoming who they are, I think just the role in helping to move other people forward is probably what I'm most proud of, because I don't think I really realized how much of that I had done until maybe probably the last couple of years. And, like, oh, okay, yeah, that I've really helped a lot of people kind of get their careers going, or, helping get this company off the ground and running is something I'm proud of. It was a lot of hard work, but just continuing to build.
And would you share with our listeners the company that you have currently, the name, like
Yeah.
they can find it because it's incredible. And yes.
Yeah, so it's called Nomad, and we do clean candles and fragrance. So candles, perfume, fragrance for the home. And I got into that initially just because I had sort of cut out a lot of the beauty products and perfume products I was using just as I had my third child, and kind of like health concerns, and just kind of had started learning a lot about the chemicals and the toxical things and BPA and plastic, all this stuff that was like kind of coming up in the news at the time. I was just trying to clean up what I use and what we had in our house, because it was like, oh man, control the stuff you can control, right? There's a lot out in the environment that you can't control. And so just trying to find cleaner products for myself. And then I'm a big, huge fragrance lover, like love perfume. I mean, since I was a kid, like just really, really love everything, fragrance and body products and skincare products. So trying to find things that were clean. And then I got to the point with candles. I'm like, well, I'm just going to make my own for myself, because then I know what's in them. I know they're good, and it'll just be kind of like a fun side hobby. The job I had at that time was just really, really stressful. So it was kind of like the polar opposite, to come home and like make something with my hands and mix something and have like the fragrance experience while I was doing it. It's just very calming. So that kind of got me through that stressful work time. And then when I left that job, it was kind of like, what am I going to do next? I have no idea. So I thought, well, I'll just put up a website. It'll be like a fun project, because that's my background, like marketing and stuff. So I thought, well, I'll put up a website. It'll be a fun portfolio project, if nothing else. And then maybe I'll sell a few candles. We'll see. So that's kind of how I got into it, and just kept growing from there, because I really loved it. And then once I realized, once I got into it from running the business, like it was probably the most fun puzzle I've ever worked on. It's like constantly things to figure out and finding that next step and being curious and, not knowing how to do stuff, but kind of jumping in or finding the person with the answer. It was like everything I had done in my corporate career, but to the extreme, and getting to kind of figure that stuff out. So I've just really loved it. Our website is nomadwax.com.
That is fantastic. I love nothing. Molly and I love nothing more than female entrepreneurs. Like that is like, we just like, you're our people because we are
Yes.
entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I love that curiosity has served you. And I think Amy and I do wake up every morning and think, how can I bless and serve and bring value? But also, how can I be curious? And those of
Mm-hmm.
you listening that do have that next generation working for you, they're not, it's not all about cancel culture. And no, these kids want to be mentored. And so I love you being mentored, but then mentoring so many. That is such a great way to serve. It doesn't have to look like showing up at the food bank every week, right? Like mentoring where you are, where your feet are
Yeah.
planted is so powerful.
Yeah. Well, and especially like in the workforce, it might be somebody that's not even on your team, but just somebody
Yeah.
you can give guidance and, advice to that's starting out in their career of like, hey, here's how to move forward, or here's a skill, or here's something I see that you're really good at. What, you should try and do more of that. I had a couple of people with that. We had one girl on our team a few years ago that was at the crossroads of almost being fired because some of the other managers were like, she doesn't seem serious and, she's not doing that and this, that, and the other. And we're asking her to do this stuff and she's not doing a good job at it. And I would kind of was like, I think that's just not her best skill. I think she's really good at this. What if we had her do this other task over here? Because I think she kind of has a natural skill and talent in this area. And maybe we're asking her to do something that she's just not good at. And she's probably never going to be good at. We had done like Clifton Strength Finder at that time too. So it was kind of like, remember, we just went through that training. Like, let's don't try and force a square peg into a round hole. Let's like lean into where she has talent. And we switched her into a different position and she just thrived. And now she's like a senior manager at another company in that area of expertise. And it was just sometimes just taking a step back and seeing like, okay, how can we help somebody instead of like, just saying, no, this isn't working out, you're fired. Now, sometimes, sure, it's valid, it's not a fit, but sometimes it's also looking at, well, what, maybe they're just skilled. We're trying to get them to do the wrong thing, especially when somebody's starting out in their career. They don't really know, what they're good at or what they love. And so if you can kind of help see that and kind of direct them or guide them, that's always useful too.
And such a powerful thing to pray for your kids, right? I do every day for both of our son and daughter that they get great mentors put into their life. And so put that on your prayer list, friends. That is
Yeah, that's a
something
good
powerful
one.
you can pray for. So we always wrap up, Melissa, with what does it mean? This is called Meet Me in the Penthouse. And what does it mean to live in the penthouse of your mind?
Yeah, I think for me, it's being able to, the thing that's penthouse for me is being able to live in like, just kind of live light and free and joyful and remembering that when things get stressful or when things are tough, just to remember like what that feels like to go back. And I have some key moments where I've like felt it in my body, what that feels like. And remember that of like, nope, this is where you want to live from. So do you need to adjust something in your life because it's a job that just is never going to be a fit or, something in your schedule that just isn't working. So for me, it's getting back to that like light, free, joyful feeling. That's penthouse for me. Like if I'm there, I know stuff is rocking and rolling because I'm living as my best self. I'm bringing my best energy. I'm happy. I'm active, and I can then go out and serve others. And like you said, I can bless people because I'm living from my highest place.
Oh,
It's not always easy to do, by the way.
yeah, yeah, it sounds absolutely. But you truly are the epitome of growth mindset. When I walked away from meeting you in person versus just Zoom, I thought, wow, she is like, this is who they wrote the book Growth Mindset about. You are 100% growth mindset, and everything is always working out for you. So I love that. And for all of you that are tuning in, thank you for joining us. Please like, subscribe, share, rate us on Spotify and also on Apple. But the biggest thing is follow us on www.sistersnextdoor.com. We have a great wealth frequency class coming up. And it is powerful. It is a powerful class that is just for 4 weeks. And so we look forward to meeting you in the penthouse. And Melissa will be right there with us. And thanks again, Melissa. We love today.
Yeah. Just one other thing I'd like to say, if there are other women business owners out there, other entrepreneurs, and you're looking for a community to connect with, reach out. I think joining the wealth frequency class is a great means because you'll meet other people that are in the same place, that are striving in the same direction that you are, and having that community around you sometimes can make the difference between, having a day where you feel like a failure and having a day that feels like a success, just something that someone else there to support you. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I have a couple of different groups of mostly women entrepreneurs, but they really are everything to me. And a group like the wealth frequency, you're going to find the same thing, people that are moving in the same direction you are and can help lift you up.
Amen, sister. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, ladies.
Hey guys, we'd love to have you join our waitlist for our class of You from the Top. There are going to be incredible women who are making incredible, decisive, clear decisions. The energy is fabulous. The view from the top is fabulous, and there's room for you at the top. Go to sistersnextdoor.com and join our waitlist.